There's a kind of tiredness that sleep doesn't fix. It's not physical exhaustion, it's not burnout from work, it's something deeper, something harder to name. It's the tiredness of existing itself, of waking up and doing it all again, of being conscious, of being here. Some people feel this and don't know how to talk about it because it's not quite depression, though it might look like it. It's not quite hopelessness, though it feels close. It's more like a profound fatigue with the act of living, the repetition, the effort, the endless maintenance of being a person. And here's what makes this so difficult to understand. These aren't necessarily people who hate their lives. They might have good jobs, loving families, comfortable circumstances. On paper, everything looks fine, but inside there's this quiet exhaustion that never goes away. This sense that existence itself is just too heavy to carry anymore. So what is this? Where does it come from? And why do some people feel it so intensely while others seem to move through life effortlessly?
Let's start with what this feeling actually is. Psychologists call it existential exhaustion or existential fatigue. It's the weariness that comes not from what you're doing, but from the simple fact of being, from consciousness itself. Think about what it means to be alive. You wake up every day and have to maintain yourself, feed yourself, wash yourself, dress yourself, go places, do things, interact with people, make decisions, solve problems, feel emotions, process experiences, and then you sleep. And tomorrow, you do it all again, forever, until you don't. For most people, this just is. They don't think about it. They move through life on autopilot, carried by routine and distraction. But some people become acutely aware of the mechanics of existence, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. The repetition becomes suffocating. This often starts with a moment of clarity that feels more like a curse. Maybe you're brushing your teeth one morning and suddenly you think, I've done this thousands of times. I'll do it thousands more. What's the point?
And that question once asked doesn't go away. People who are tired of existing often describe life as feeling like a performance they never auditioned for. They're playing a role they didn't choose, following a script they don't believe in, and they're exhausted from pretending it all matters. They go through the motions. They smile at appropriate times. They respond when spoken to. They show up to work, to obligations, to life. But inside, there's nothing. Just this quiet, persistent exhaustion. This sense of going through the motions while being utterly disconnected from any sense of purpose or meaning. Here's what research tells us. This state is often linked to something called anhedonia, the inability to feel pleasure. But it's more specific than that. It's not that these people can't feel good, it's that nothing feels worth the effort anymore. Even things they used to enjoy feel like work, like obligations, like just more things they have to do to maintain the appearance of living. And that's the exhausting part. Not just existing, but having to perform existence. Having to act like you care about things you don't care about. Having to pretend you're invested in a future you can't imagine wanting. There's also a concept called depersonalization, where you feel disconnected from yourself, like you're watching your life from outside your body. People who are tired of existing often experience this. They go through their days feeling like spectators in their own lives, present, but not really there. Everything feels distant, muted, like there's a thick pane of glass between them and reality. They can see life happening, but they can't feel it. They can't connect to it. And the effort of trying to reconnect, of trying to care, of trying to feel something real is utterly exhausting. Let's talk about what causes this, because it's rarely one thing. Often it's an accumulation. Years of disappointment, years of trying and failing, years of hoping things would get better and watching them stay the same. Years of being told you matter while feeling completely insignificant in the vastness of everything. Sometimes it comes from trauma.
Not necessarily one big traumatic event, but the slow accumulation of small betrayals, small losses, small moments where you learned that the world is indifferent to your pain, that no one's coming to save you, that you're on your own. And being on your own is exhausting. Sometimes it comes from awareness, from understanding too much about how the world works, about systems of power, injustice, suffering, the randomness of existence. When you see too clearly how meaningless and arbitrary everything is, it's hard to keep caring. It's hard to keep showing up to a game you know is rigged. And sometimes it just emerges from nowhere. Brain chemistry shifts. Neurotransmitters stop functioning properly. And suddenly existence feels impossible for reasons you can't explain or control. Here's what makes this particularly isolating. You can't really talk about it. If you say, "I'm tired of existing," people panic. They think you're suicidal. They want to fix you, save you, hospitalize you. But that's not quite it. You're not actively wanting to die. You're just exhausted by the effort of staying alive. There's a difference between suicidal ideation and existential exhaustion. Suicidal people want an end. Exhausted people just want rest. They want permission to not try so hard, to not perform, to not maintain the facade. But there's no socially acceptable way to say that. So they stay quiet, they function, they do what's expected, but inside they're drowning in the weight of just being. And no one sees it because they've gotten very good at hiding it. Let's talk about the daily reality of this. Every morning is a negotiation. Do I have to get up? Do I have to do this again? And then the slow, heavy process of convincing yourself to move, to exist for another day. Not because you want to, but because stopping isn't really an option. Every interaction requires energy you don't have. Small talk feels impossible. Pretending to care about mundane things feels like climbing a mountain. Someone asks, "How are you?" And you want to scream, "I'm so tired of being a person." But instead, you say, "Fine," and the lie costs you something. Responsibilities pile up, not because they're difficult, but because everything requires effort, and you have no effort left. Showering is exhausting. Eating is exhausting. Answering messages is exhausting. Existing in any visible way is exhausting. And people don't understand. They see someone who's struggling with basic tasks and they think lazy, unmotivated, irresponsible. They don't see the invisible weight, the constant mental effort just to keep being, the negotiation happening every moment to not just shut down completely. Here's something important. This isn't weakness. This isn't failure. This is what happens when a person has been holding too much for too long without rest, when they've been performing survival while everyone around them expects them to be thriving. The human psyche isn't designed for this. We're not meant to be constantly productive, constantly available, constantly performing, constantly okay. We need rest, real rest, not just sleep, but permission to stop performing existence for a while. But modern life doesn't allow that. You can't just stop. Bills need paying. Responsibilities need handling. People need things from you. So you keep going, and the exhaustion deepens. And eventually, you're not really living anymore. You're just enduring. There's a concept in psychology called learned helplessness, where repeated exposure to uncontrollable negative events makes you stop trying to escape them. You learn that your actions don't matter, so you stop acting. People who are tired of existing often have learned helplessness about life itself. They've tried to make things better. They've tried to find meaning, purpose, joy, and maybe things got better briefly, but then they got hard again, and again, and again, until trying feels pointless. Until the lesson you've learned is that effort doesn't matter, that hoping hurts more than accepting emptiness. So they stop trying. not because they're weak, but because trying has proven to be futile. And existing without trying, without hope, without expectation, is its own special kind of exhaustion. Let's talk about what helps. Because if you're someone feeling this, or you know someone who is, understanding that it's real is the first step. This isn't laziness. This isn't attention seeking. This is a legitimate psychological state that deserves compassion, not judgment. Professional help matters. Therapy, specifically, approaches like existential therapy or acceptance and commitment therapy, can help people reconstruct meaning in a life that feels meaningless. Medication can help if brain chemistry is part of the problem. But beyond that, what exhausted people need most is permission. Permission to not be okay. Permission to rest without guilt. Permission to exist at a lower capacity without being judged as broken. They need people who can sit with them in the emptiness without trying to fix it. Who can say, "I see how tired you are," without immediately offering solutions. Because sometimes being seen is enough. Sometimes knowing you're not alone in the exhaustion makes it slightly more bearable. They need small things to feel manageable again. Not goals or aspirations or plans for the future. Just small, gentle moments. A warm drink, a soft blanket, a moment of sun. Not because these things fix anything, but because they make the present moment slightly less heavy. And they need to know that this feeling, as permanent as it seems, isn't always permanent. That existential exhaustion can lift. That meaning can return. That life can feel less heavy, not through force or willpower, but through time, support, and the slow rebuilding of reasons to stay. Here's what I want you to understand. If you're tired of existing, you're not broken beyond repair. You're a person who's been carrying too much for too long. And yes, life requires effort. But you shouldn't have to white-knuckle your way through every single day. You deserve rest. Real rest. You deserve to exist without performing. You deserve to take up space without justifying it. You deserve to be tired without being told to just push through. And to everyone else, the people around you who seem fine might not be. The person who's always functional might be barely holding on. The exhaustion of existing is invisible until it's not. Until someone can't keep pretending anymore. So pay attention. Ask people how they're really doing. Create space for honest answers. Don't rush to fix or solve. Just witness. Just be present with someone's exhaustion without making them feel worse about it. Because sometimes, the most helpful thing you can offer someone who's tired of existing isn't motivation or solutions. It's permission to rest. Permission to not be okay. Permission to exist at whatever capacity they can manage today without judgment. And maybe, with enough rest and enough permission and enough compassion, the weight lightens. Not all at once, not permanently, but enough. Enough to take another breath. Enough to try another day. Enough to keep existing. Not because you have to, but because maybe, just maybe, you want to. Not today, perhaps, but someday. And until then, it's okay to just be tired. It's okay to just survive. It's okay to exist at the absolute minimum and call that enough. Because you are enough. Even when you're exhausted, even when you're empty, even when existing feels impossible, you are enough, exactly as you are. And one day, when you're ready, when you're rested, when the weight has lifted even slightly, you might remember what it feels like to want to be here. Not just to endure, but to actually be here. Until then, be gentle with yourself. Rest when you can. Exist at whatever pace you can manage. And know that your exhaustion is valid, your struggle is real, and you're not alone in feeling too tired to be. The world can wait. For now, just breathe. Just be. That's enough.